If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Your support helps us bring you even more incredible real-life stories that leave you thinking long after the video ends. Now let's dive into today's story. The coffee mug shattered against the kitchen wall, sending ceramic shards across the marble floor like tiny white explosions. Ilana stood in the doorway of our condo, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood as she surveyed the mess she'd just created. "I regret marrying you, Jack," she said, her voice carrying that particular brand of venom she'd perfected over the past year. "I could have done so much better." I looked up from my laptop where I'd been reviewing security protocols for Brascontech, my IT consulting firm. The irony wasn't lost on me that I spent my days protecting other people's digital assets while my own life was being systematically dismantled by the woman who'd promised to love and honor me 8 years ago. "Good morning to you too, sweetheart," I said, keeping my tone level. Years of dealing with corporate executives having meltdowns over data breaches had taught me the value of staying calm under pressure. Ilara's perfectly manicured fingers gripped the doorframe at 34. She still turned heads wherever she went, with her blonde hair styled in that effortless way that probably cost more than most people's rent. Her PR executive salary at Morrison & Associates kept her in the latest fashions, and she never let me forget it. "Don't you dare patronize me," she snapped. "I'm moving out today." I saved my work and closed the laptop, giving her my full attention. "Any particular reason, or is this just another Tuesday tantrum?" Her phone buzzed on the counter. I caught a glimpse of the notification. "Leo can't wait to see you tonight." Beautiful, interesting Dolan Cross, her VP at Morrison & Associates. I'd met him at company parties, one of those guys who wore expensive cologne to mask his cheap personality. He drove a vintage BMW that he treated like a religious artifact and had the kind of oily charm that worked on insecure women looking for validation. "I'm tired of settling," Ilana continued, oblivious to my observation. "I'm 34 years old, Jack. I should be living in a penthouse, not this cramped little place." Our cramped little place was a 3-bedroom condo in downtown Seattle with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. Most people would consider it a dream home, but Ilaria had always measured success by other people's standards, and apparently mine weren't high enough anymore. "I see," I said, "and where exactly are you planning to live? Somewhere better with someone who appreciates what he has." Another buzz from her phone. This time she grabbed it quickly, but not before I saw Leo. "My place is ready for you." The pieces clicked into place with the satisfying precision of a well-coded algorithm. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. This was a calculated move, planned and executed with the same attention to detail she brought to her PR campaigns. The only thing she hadn't calculated was my reaction. "Well," I said, standing up and stretching, "I suppose I should congratulate you on your upgrade." She blinked clearly, expecting more of a fight. "What, you're trading up, right? Moving on to bigger and better things?" "I'm sure Leo appreciates your enthusiasm." The color drained from her face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you don't." I walked past her toward the bedroom. "I'll help you pack. Wouldn't want to keep your new life waiting." For the next 3 hours I watched Ilaria stuff her belongings into designer suitcases with the efficiency of someone who'd been planning this moment for weeks. She took the jewelry, the expensive clothes, the artwork she'd insisted we buy, but I'd never liked anyway. She left the books, the kitchen gadgets and the framed photos of our early years together. "The lawyer will be in touch about the divorce," she said. As she wheeled her last suitcase toward the door, "I'm sure he will be." She paused, her hand on the doorknob for a moment. I thought she might say something genuine, an apology, an explanation. Maybe even a goodbye that acknowledged the 8 years we'd spent building a life together. Instead, she said, "I hope you understand why I had to do this." "Oh, I understand perfectly." After she left, I sat in the sudden silence of the condo and opened my laptop as head of IT security for Brascontech. I had access to tools and resources that most people could only dream of. I'd built my career on protecting sensitive information and tracking down digital threats. It was time to put those skills to personal use. I started with Ilara's social media accounts. She'd never been particularly careful about her privacy settings, and years of living together meant I knew her passwords, her security questions, and her patterns. Within an hour, I had a complete picture of her relationship *P with Leo dating back 6 months. The messages were nauseating in their banality, lots of heart emojis, complaints about me, and plans for their future together. But it was the photos that really told the story, intimate shots taken in our condo while I was at work, pictures of them at restaurants I'd never been to, vacation, planning for trips she'd told me were girls' weekends. I saved everything to an encrypted drive, then sat back to consider my options. Ilara had made her choice. She'd decided I wasn't good enough, that she deserved better, that our marriage was something to be discarded in favor of whatever fantasy Leo had sold her. She'd humiliated me, lied to me and thrown away. 8 years like they meant nothing. If she wanted to play games, I'd show her how the game was really played. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Mira Triax, Ilara's younger sister. Mira was everything. Ilaria wasn't practical, honest, and fiercely loyal to her family. She'd never liked me much, but she had even less patience for liars and cheaters. I attached the most damning evidence to an email and typed a simple message: "Thought you should know what your sister has been up to. Jack." My finger hovered over the send button for exactly 3 seconds. Then I pressed it if Ilaria wanted drama. She was about to get the director's cut. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The next morning I was already at my desk at Brassen Tech. When my phone rang, Myra's name flashed on the screen. "You son of a witch," she said without preamble. "Is this real, every pixel of it? Jesus Christ. Jack." I knew she was being weird lately, but this she trailed off and I could hear her breathing heavily on the other end. "How long?" "6 months from what I can tell, maybe longer, and you're just finding out now." I had my suspicions. Yesterday's performance confirmed them. Moreau was quiet for a long moment. "Then what are you going to do?" "What any reasonable person would do: file for divorce and move on with my life." "That's it." I smiled, even though she couldn't see me. "That's it, but of course that wasn't it, not even close. My first stop after work was the office of Emma Morrison, the best divorce attorney in Seattle. She was expensive, but I'd been saving money for years while Ilaria spent it, and I could afford the best. "I want to file immediately," I told her, sliding a folder across her desk, "and I want to freeze all joint accounts and credit cards, effective immediately." Emma raised an eyebrow as she flipped through the evidence. "This is quite comprehensive. You work in it, you said, security consulting." "I'm very thorough." "I can see that. Yes, we can definitely work with this. Given the evidence of infidelity and financial deception, you're in a strong position. I'll have the papers filed by end of business today." "Excellent. One more thing. I want everything frozen before she has a chance to drain our accounts." "Consider it done." The next morning, I was reviewing security protocols when my personal phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Tori Brand, Ilara's friend. We need to talk." Tori Brand. I remembered her from various social gatherings, an influencer with a lifestyle blog and a talent for gossip. She was also, if I remembered correctly, perpetually short on money, despite her carefully curated online presence. I texted back, "Coffee shop on Pine Street, 1 hour." Tori was already waiting when I arrived, her phone face down on the table and her usual social media smile nowhere to be seen. "She doesn't know I'm here," she said. As I sat down, I assumed as much. "Look, I know what she did to you and I know what she's planning to do next," which is— Tori glanced around the coffee shop nervously. "She's going to try to take money from the company. She's got some fake PR project proposal that she's planning to use to siphon funds into a personal account." "Interesting. And you're telling me this because I'm tired of her treating people like garbage. Do you know what she said about you at drinks last week?" Tori's voice rose slightly. "She said you were boring in bed and that she was embarrassed to be seen with you in public." I kept my expression neutral, but filed the information away. "That must have been uncomfortable for you to hear." "It was horrible, and then she started talking about how she was going to take you for everything you're worth in the divorce." Tori leaned forward. "I can help you stop her, but I need something in return." "What? 5,000 cash? I've got credit card bills that are destroying me, and Ilaria keeps promising to help but never follows through." I pretended to consider it. "What kind of help are we talking about?" "I can get you copies of her plans, her communications with Leo, recordings of her talking trash about you, whatever you need." "Deal." We shook hands and I knew I'd just recruited my first double agent. That afternoon I was back at Brassen Tech when my work phone rang. It was Emma Morrison. "The accounts are frozen," she said. "Your wife just tried to use her credit card at some high-end salon. It was declined." "How do you know that?" "Because she called me screaming. Apparently she was getting some kind of expensive treatment and couldn't pay for it. Had to call her sister to come bail her out." I couldn't help but smile. "That's unfortunate. There's more. She's threatening to come after your business assets, says she's entitled to half of everything you've built." "Let her try. Brassen Tech was established before our marriage and I have the documentation to prove it good. I'll prepare a response to her threats in the meantime. You might want to be careful. Desperate people do stupid things." She wasn't wrong. That evening I got a call from building security. "Mr. Baskin, we've got your wife down here demanding access to your condo. She says you changed the locks." I hadn't changed the locks, but I'd had new keys made and disabled her electronic access card. "She no longer lives here. She moved out yesterday. She's pretty upset." "Sir, should we call the police?" "Not yet, just tell her she needs to make an appointment through her attorney." If she wants to retrieve any remaining belongings, we'll do. 20 minutes later my phone exploded with text messages from Ilaria. You can't lock me out of my own home. This is harassment. My lawyer is going to destroy you. Leo says. You're pathetic and desperate. I screenshot every message and forwarded them to Emma Morrison. Then I poured myself a glass of wine and settled in to wait for the next development. I didn't have to wait long. At 11 p.m., my building's fire alarm went off. I grabbed my laptop and headed for the stairs along with dozens of other residents outside. Fire trucks were already arriving, their lights, painting the street in reds and blues. False alarm. One of the firefighters announced. After 20 minutes, someone pulled the alarm on the 8th floor, my floor. I rode the elevator back up and checked the hallway security cameras on my phone. There was Ilaria at 10:47 p.m. pulling the fire alarm before disappearing into the stairwell. I forwarded the footage to Emma Morrison with a note evidence of harassment and filing a false emergency report. Then I sent a copy to Mira with a different message. Your sister is having a rough night, thought you should know. The next morning brought news that made my coffee taste even better than usual. Tori had delivered on her promise, sending me a recording of Ilaria's conversation with Leo about the fake PR project. It's foolproof. Ilaria's voice came through my laptop speakers. I create a fake client, submit a proposal for a 6-figure campaign, and then funnel the money through shell accounts. By the time anyone notices, we'll be long gone. What about your husband? Leo's voice was tinny through the phone connection. What about him? He's too stupid to figure it out. And even if he does, I'll just claim it was a legitimate business expense. I made copies of the recording and sent one to Emma Morrison, one to Mira and one to an anonymous email account I'd created. Then I logged into Braskin Tech security system and started preparing a little surprise for Ilaria's fake PR project if she wanted to play corporate espionage. She was about to learn why I was the best in the business. But first I had a more immediate problem to solve. According to Tori, Ilana and Leo were planning to celebrate their victory over me with dinner at an expensive restaurant downtown. They'd booked a table for 3 at Marcel's, the kind of place where the wine list started at $50 a bottle. Too bad they wouldn't be able to pay for it. I picked up my phone and called the restaurant Marcel's. This is Jennifer. Hi. This is Leo Cross. I have a reservation tonight for 3 at 8 o'clock. I need to update the payment method on file, of course. Mr. Cross, what's the new card number? I gave her the number for one of Ilaria's frozen credit cards. Perfect. We'll see you tonight, looking forward to it. This was going to be fun. The call came at 10:30 p.m., just as I was settling in with a book and a glass of wine. Jack, it was Mira, and she sounded like she was trying not to laugh. Did you have anything to do with what happened at Marcel's tonight? I'm not sure what you mean. Ilana and her boyfriend got stuck with a $400 dinner bill and no way to pay for it. They had to wash dishes for 3 hours. I nearly choked on my wine. Wash dishes. The manager made them work it off in the kitchen. Ilaria called me at midnight, crying and covered in grease, begging me to come pick her up. That's terrible. I said, not meaning it at all. No, it's hilarious. She spent the whole ride home, ranting about how you're trying to ruin her life. I told her that maybe she should have thought about that. Before she decided to cheat on you and steal from her company, you told her you knew. Oh yes, and I told her exactly what I thought about her behavior. We're not speaking anymore. That was unfortunate. Mira had been one of the few members of Ilaria's family I actually liked. But it also meant that Ilaria's support system was starting to crumble. The next morning brought even better news. Tori sent me a text. She tried the fake PR thing. It backfired spectacularly. I called her immediately. What happened? She submitted the proposal yesterday afternoon. This morning, her boss called her into his office with HR and the company's fraud investigator. Apparently someone had flagged the proposal as suspicious and traced it back to her, someone right. What Tori didn't know was that I'd spent the previous evening creating a digital trail that made Ilaria's fake proposal glow like a neon sign to anyone with basic forensic accounting skills. I'd also made sure that the shell accounts she'd set up were linked back to her personal information in ways that would be immediately obvious to investigators. She's suspended pending investigation, Tori continued, and they're talking about pressing charges. That's serious. It gets worse. Leo threw her under the bus completely, told them she'd approached him with the scheme and that he'd tried to talk her out of it. I wasn't surprised. Men like Leo were cowards at heart, always ready to sacrifice someone else to save themselves. How is she taking it? Not well? She's been calling everyone she knows, trying to get someone to loan her money for a lawyer. So far, no takers. Keep me posted. We'll do Owen Jack that $5,000 you promised me. I'm going to need it. Soon. My landlord is getting impatient. I'll have it for you this afternoon. After I hung up, I leaned back in my office chair and considered my next move. Ilera was suspended from work, cut off from her family, and facing potential criminal charges. Leo had betrayed her to save himself. She was isolated, desperate, and probably starting to panic. Perfect. I spent the morning working on legitimate Brascontech business, but my heart wasn't really in it. I kept thinking about Ilana, probably sitting in her new apartment with Leo, realizing that her carefully planned escape from our marriage had turned into a nightmare. At lunch, I met Tori at a small cafe near her apartment. She looked tired and stressed her usual social media polish. Nowhere to be seen here. I said, sliding an envelope across the table, 5,000 as promised. She grabbed it eagerly. Thank you, you have no idea how much this helps. Actually I do. I've seen your credit card statements. She looked up sharply what Ilera showed them to me months ago. She was laughing about how you couldn't afford your lifestyle, but kept pretending to be successful online. She called you a fake influencer living in a fantasy world. Tori's face went pale, then red. She said that. Among other things. She also said, you were desperate and pathetic and that she only kept you around because you made her feel better about herself. I was lying. Of course. Ilera had never shown me Tori's financial information or said those specific words. But I knew Ilera well enough to know that she'd think them. And I knew Tori well enough to know that she'd believe them. That which Tori whispered, I've been covering for her for months, making excuses. When people asked where she was lying to her husband, she looked up at me with fire in her eyes. What else do you need? I want to know everything, every conversation, every plan, every weakness, and I want you to start feeding her false information. What kind of false information? Tell her I'm planning to drop the divorce proceedings, tell her I'm willing to take her back if she apologizes, make her think she still has a chance to salvage this. Why? Because desperate people make mistakes and I want her to make a very big one. That afternoon I got a call from Emma Morrison. Your wife's attorney contacted me, she said. They want to negotiate. What are they offering? A 50-50 split of all assets plus alimony for 5 years. In exchange, she'll agree not to contest the divorce counter. She gets nothing except her personal belongings and she signs a non-disclosure agreement preventing her from discussing our marriage publicly. That's pretty harsh. Jack. Even with the evidence of infidelity, a judge might award her something. Let them try. I have more evidence than they know about. What kind of evidence, the kind that proves. She's been planning this for a lot longer than 6 months. Financial records, communications, the works. If they want to fight, I'm ready. All right. I'll make the counteroffer, but be prepared for them to reject it. I'm counting on it. That evening I was at home working on my laptop when the building's concierge called. Mr. Baskin. There's a Dal across here to see you. Should I send him up? Interesting. No, I'll come down. I found Leo in the lobby, pacing nervously in his expensive suit. He looked like he hadn't slept in days and his usual oily confidence was nowhere to be seen. Jack, he said. As I approached, we need to talk. Do we look? This whole situation has gotten out of hand? Ilera, is she's not handling the pressure well? I imagine not. The thing is, she's talking about doing something drastic, something that could hurt a lot of people, such as. Leo glanced around the lobby nervously. She's got dirt on people at the company, clients, executives, confidential information. She's threatening to leak it all if they don't drop the fraud investigation. That would be incredibly stupid of her. Yes, it would, which is why I'm here. I think you're the only person who can talk sense into her. I almost laughed. You want me to help the woman who cheated on me and tried to steal from her company. I want you to prevent her from destroying herself completely, and maybe taking me down with her there. It was. Leo wasn't concerned about Ilera's well-being. He was worried about his own skin. What makes you think she'd listen to me because she still loves you now? I did laugh. Right. I'm serious. She talks about you constantly, about how she made a mistake, how she wishes she could take it all back. She's convinced herself that if she can just fix this mess, you'll forgive her. And what do you think about that? Leo's mask slipped for just a moment and I saw the fear underneath. I think she's delusional, but I also think she's dangerous. She's got nothing left to lose, Jack. That makes her unpredictable. I see. And what exactly are you asking me to do? Talk to her? Convince her to take the plea deal the prosecutors are offering. Get her to drop this scorched earth strategy before she ruins everyone, including you, including me. I pretended to consider it. I'll think about it. Thank you. I know this is awkward. But Leo, yeah, if you ever come to my building again, I'll have security throw you out. Are we clear? He nodded quickly and headed for the door. I watched him go, then pulled out my phone and called Tori. It's working. I said when she answered. They're starting to turn on each other. What do you want me to do? Tell Ilera that Leo came to see me. Tell her he's trying to cut a deal to save himself, and tell her that I'm willing to meet with her, but only if she comes alone. We're the coffee shop where we first met tomorrow at noon. This is getting intense. Jack, it's about to get a lot more intense. The coffee shop was nearly empty when I arrived at 11:45 a.m. I chose a table near the back with a clear view of the entrance and the street outside. Old habits for my cybersecurity work: always know your exits, always control the environment. Ilara arrived exactly on time, which surprised me. Punctuality had never been one of her strengths during our marriage. She looked terrible. Her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, her designer clothes were wrinkled, and she had dark circles under her eyes that no amount of makeup could hide. She spotted me immediately and walked over her heels, clicking on the hardwood floor with less confidence than usual. "Thank you for agreeing to see me," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. Tori said, "You wanted to talk?" "I do." She folded her hands on the table and I noticed she was still wearing her wedding ring. "Interesting, Jack. I made a terrible mistake, which one there have been so many lately." She flinched. "I know you're angry, you have every right to be, but I need you to know that none of this was supposed to happen like this." "How was it supposed to happen?" "I was going to tell you about Leo. I was going to ask for a separation. Give us both time to figure things out. I never meant for you to find out the way you did, so you were planning to cheat on me more thoughtfully." "How considerate, it wasn't like that." Her voice was getting louder and the few other customers in the shop were starting to stare. "I was confused, lonely. You were always working, always focused on your computers and your clients. I felt invisible, so you decided to become visible to someone else." "Yes. No. I don't know." She put her head in her hands. "Everything is falling apart. Jack, my job, my family, my whole life. I need your help, my help, the fraud investigation. I know you had something to do with it. You're the only one smart enough to set up that kind of digital trap." I kept my expression neutral. "That's a serious accusation." "It's not an accusation, it's a fact, and I'm not angry about it. I deserved it, but I need you to make it stop. I don't think I can do that even if I wanted to, which I don't." Her composure finally cracked. "Please, Jack, I'm begging you. I'll do anything. I'll sign whatever divorce papers you want, give up any claim to your assets. Just help me get out of this mess." "Why would I do that?" "Because you loved me once, because we had 8 good years together before everything went wrong. Because I'm asking you to be the bigger person." I leaned back in my chair and studied her face. She was genuinely desperate, maybe even genuinely sorry, but it was too little, too late. "No." I said simply, "No, no. I won't help you. No. I won't be the bigger person, and no. I don't care that you're sorry." She stared at me like I'd slapped her. "You can't mean that." "I absolutely mean that you made your choices. Ilaria, you chose Leo over me. You chose deception over honesty. You chose to try to steal money from your company rather than face the consequences of your actions. Now you get to live with those choices, but I could go to prison." "Yes, you could, and that doesn't bother you." "Not even a little bit." She sat back in her chair, her face cycling through shock, hurt and finally anger. "You're enjoying this. Aren't you more than I probably should? You're sick. This isn't the man I married." "You're right. The man you married was naive enough to trust you. He's gone." She stood up abruptly, knocking her chair backward. "This isn't over, Jack. I still have options." "No, you really don't." She stormed out, leaving me alone with my coffee and a deep sense of satisfaction. Phase 1 of my plan was complete. Ilana was isolated, desperate, and starting to make the kind of mistakes that would finish her off completely. I pulled out my phone and called Tori. "How did it go?" She asked perfectly. "She's exactly where I want her." "What's the latest from Leo's end?" "He's panicking. Word is getting around the company about the fraud investigation and people are starting to distance themselves from him. He's been trying to get meetings with executives to explain his side of the story, but no one wants to see him good." "What about Ilara's family?" "Mira is holding firm. She told her parents about the affair and the fraud charges. They're not taking her calls." "Excellent. Keep monitoring the situation and let me know if anything changes." That afternoon I was back at Braskintech when my assistant knocked on my door. "Mr. Baskin. There's someone here to see." "You says it's personal, who is it?" "A Mr. Cross? He seems upset." I sighed. "Send him in, but stay close. This might get interesting." Leo walked into my office looking even worse than he had the night before. His expensive suit was rumpled, his hair was disheveled, and he had the wild-eyed look of a man who was watching his life fall apart in real time. "You son of a witch," he said, closing the door behind him. "You set us up." "I have no idea what you're talking about. The fraud investigation, the frozen accounts, all of it. You orchestra *** trotted this whole thing. That's a very serious accusation. Do you have any proof?" "I don't need proof. I know it was you. What you know and what you can prove are 3 very different things. I suggest you be careful about making accusations. You can't back up." He stepped closer to my desk, his fists clenched. You think you're so smart? Don't you sitting there in your little office, pulling strings, destroying people's lives? I think I'm a man whose wife cheated on him and whose marriage was destroyed by 3 selfish, greedy people. Everything else is just consequences. Ilera made a mistake. She knows that now, but you're taking this too far. Let me ask you something, Leo, when you were sleeping with my wife in my bed? Did you think about consequences? Then when you were helping her plan to steal money from her company, did you consider what might happen if you got caught? That's different. No, it's not. You both made choices. Now you get to live with them. He slammed his hand on my desk, making my coffee mug jump. This ends now. Jack, I'm going to the police, the FBI, whoever will listen. I'm going to tell them exactly what you've done. Be my guest, but before you do, let me give you some free advice. I'm very, very good at covering my tracks, and I'm even better at finding other people's secrets. What's that supposed to mean? It means that if you try to come after me, I'll make sure the authorities know about every questionable thing you've ever done. The expense account fraud. From 20110, the client you overcharged by $40,000 last year. The tax evasion scheme. You've been running through your consulting business. His face went white. How do you? I told you I'm very good at what I do. He stood there for a long moment, opening and closing his mouth like a fish out of water. Finally, he turned and walked toward the door. This isn't over, he said, without turning around. Yes, it is after he left. I called building security and had them add Leo to the list of people who weren't allowed in the building then. I called Emma Morrison. I think we need to accelerate the divorce proceedings. I told her why. Because my wife and her boyfriend are getting desperate, and desperate people do unpredictable things. What kind of unpredictable things? The kind that might require restraining orders. That evening I was at home when my building's concierge called again. Mr. Brossan. I'm sorry to bother you, but there's a woman here claiming to be your wife. She's quite agitated and demanding to see you. Tell her she needs to go through her attorney. I tried that, sir. She's refusing to leave. Should I call the police? Not yet, I'll be right down. I found Ilera in the lobby, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. She was still wearing the same clothes from our coffee shop meeting, and she looked like she hadn't slept or eaten since then. We need to talk, she said. As soon as she saw me, no, we don't, and you need to leave. I'm not going anywhere until you listen to me. Then you're going to be here for a very long time. I turned to walk back toward the elevator, but she grabbed my arm. Don't you dare walk away from me. Let go of me. Ilera. Not until you hear what I have to say. Security, I called to the concierge. Please call the police. I need this woman removed from the building. You can't do this to me. Ilera's voice was getting louder and more hysterical. I'm your wife, you're my soon-to-be ex-wife, and you're trespassing. She lunged at me, then her fingernails aimed at my face. I stepped back and she stumbled, falling to her knees on the marble floor of the lobby. This is all your fault, she screamed. You ruined everything. The police arrived 10 minutes later and escorted her out of the building. I gave them a statement and requested that they file a report for harassment and attempted assault. As I rode the elevator back to my condo, I couldn't help but smile. Ilera had just handed me the final piece of evidence I needed to destroy her completely. Tomorrow, the real fun would begin. I woke up the next morning to 17 missed calls from Tori and a series of increasingly frantic text messages. The last one, sent at 3 a.m., simply said, "Call me now. Emergency." I made coffee and called her back. "Thank God," she said. As soon as she picked up, "I've been trying to reach you for hours." I turned my phone off at night. "What's the emergency?" Ilera completely lost it last night after the police thing. She came to my apartment and spent 4 hours ranting about how she's going to destroy you. She's talking about going public with dirt on your business, claiming you hacked into her accounts. All kinds of crazy stuff. Let her try. I've got documentation for everything I've done and it's all perfectly legal. That's not the scary part. The scary part is what she's planning to do today, which is she's going to your office. She's convinced that if she can just confront you in front of your employees and clients, she can somehow turn this whole thing around. I set down my coffee mug. What time? She left here an hour ago, said she was going to be there. When you arrived. I looked at my watch. It was 7:30 am. I usually got to the office by 8 hours. Thanks for the heads up. Jack, be careful. She's not thinking clearly and she's got nothing left to lose. I'll handle it. I hung up and called Emma Morrison. I need an emergency restraining order. I told her my wife tried to assault me last night and she's threatening to disrupt my business. I can have the paperwork filed within the hour, but it won't be served until this afternoon at the earliest. That might be too late. Why? Because she's planning to ambush me at work this morning. Call the police if she shows up at your office, have her arrested for violating the no-contact order from last night. We do. I showered, dressed, and drove to Braskin Tech, arriving 15 minutes early. Ilaria was waiting in the parking lot, leaning against her car and smoking a cigarette. She looked like she'd been up all night. Her clothes were disheveled, her makeup was smeared and her hands were shaking. I parked as far away from her as possible and called building security. This is Lena Brayson. I need an escort from the parking lot to my office. There's a situation. 3 security guards met me at my car and walked with me toward the building entrance. Ilana intercepted us halfway there. Jack, we need to talk. Ma'am, you need to step back. One of the guards said, I'm his wife. I have a right to talk to him. No, you don't. I said calmly, you're trespassing on private property and you're violating the police order from last night. What police order? The one that says, you're not allowed to contact me or come near me. Her face went pale. That's not. They didn't say anything about ignorance of the law. Isn't a defense? Gentlemen. Please call the police and have this woman removed. Wait. Hillary stepped closer and both guards moved to block her. Jack. Please. I just need 5 minutes. I can fix this. I can make everything right. There's nothing to fix. It's over. Ilana, no, it's not. I love you. I made a mistake, but I love you. You love the security. I provided you love the lifestyle I gave you. You never loved me, that's not true. It is true, and deep down, you know it. The police arrived just as Ilaria was starting to cry. They were the same officers who had responded the night before, and they recognized both of us immediately. Ma'am. One of them said to Ilaria, we're going to need you to come with us. I didn't do anything wrong. You violated the conditions of your release from last night. You were told not to contact or approach Mr. Baskin. As they led her away, she turned back to me one last time. This isn't over, Jack. I'll find a way to make you pay for this. I'm counting on it, I said quietly. The rest of the morning was a blur of phone calls and meetings. Emma Morrison called to confirm that the restraining order had been filed and would be served that afternoon. The police called to let me know that Ilaria had been charged with harassment and violation of a court order. Tori called to report that Leo was frantically trying to distance himself from Ilaria and had apparently told several people that she was mentally unstable. At lunch I drove to a small restaurant across town where I'd arranged to meet Mira. She was already waiting when I arrived, looking tired and frustrated. How are you holding up? I asked as I sat down. I've been better. My sister has officially lost her mind. So I've heard. She called me this morning from jail, crying and begging me to bail her out. When I said no, she started screaming about how you've brainwashed me and turned me against her. I'm sorry you're caught in the middle of this. Mira shook her head. I'm not in the middle of anything. Ilaria made her choices and now she's facing the consequences. I just wish she'd take responsibility. Instead of blaming everyone else, that would require a level of self-awareness. She's never possessed true. Mira picked at her salad. Can I ask you something? Sure? Are you happy? I mean, I know she hurt you and I know you're angry. But are you happy with how this is all playing out? I considered the question. I'm satisfied. Whether that's the same as happy. I don't know. She's going to keep fighting, you know, even after the divorce is final, even after she serves whatever sentence she gets for the fraud charges, she'll never let this go. I'm counting on it. Why? Because as long as she's fighting me, she's not rebuilding her life. And as long as she's not rebuilding her life, she's not moving on, which means she'll keep making mistakes. Mira stared at me for a long moment. You've really thought this through, haven't you? I've had a lot of time to think, and you're sure this is what you want? Complete destruction. She destroyed our marriage. She destroyed 8 years of my life. She tried to destroy my business and my reputation. Why should I show her mercy? She never showed me because you're better than she is. Maybe I was, but not anymore. That afternoon I was back at Braskin Tech when Tori called with an update. Leo just got fired, she said, without preamble. Really? Apparently the company decided they couldn't risk keeping him on while the fraud investigation was ongoing. They gave him 30 minutes to clean out his desk. How's he taking it? Not well? He's been calling everyone he knows trying to find another job. But word has gotten around about the investigation. No one wants to touch him and Ilaria. Still in jail. Her bail hearing is tomorrow morning, but I don't think anyone is going to post bail for her. What about her parents? They've cut her off completely. Mira told them about the arrest this morning and that was the last straw. Perfect. Ilaria was in jail. Leo was unemployed and unemployable, and their support systems had collapsed. They were both exactly where I wanted them, desperate, isolated and running out of options. Keep monitoring the situation. I told Tori, and let me know if either of them tries to contact you. We'll do Owen Jack. I think you should know that some of our mutual friends are starting to ask questions about what really happened between you and Ilaria. What kind of questions? Whether you had anything to do with the fraud investigation? Whether you've been manipulating the situation? That kind of thing? What are you telling them, that Ilaria brought this on herself and that you're just protecting yourself? But I don't know how long that's going to satisfy people. Let them ask questions. I've got nothing to hide. That was mostly true. Everything I'd done was legal, if not entirely ethical. But I'd been very careful to cover my tracks, and I was confident that no one could prove I'd orchestra *** trotted Ilaria's downfall. That evening, I was at home when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Hello. Braskin, this is Detective Sarah Williams with the Seattle Police Department. I'm investigating the fraud case involving your wife, ex-wife, and yes, I've been expecting your call. I'd like to ask you a few questions if you don't mind. Not at all. Should I have my attorney present? That's up to you right now. You're not a suspect in anything. I'm just trying to get a complete picture of what happened. All right. What would you like to know? Let's start with the timeline. When did you first become aware of your wife's relationship *P with Mr. Cross? I gave her the same story. I'd given everyone else that I discovered the affair the day Ilaria moved out and that everything else had followed from there. I was careful to stick to the facts and avoid any details that might suggest I'd been planning my revenge for longer than a few days, and you had no prior knowledge of the fraudulent PR proposal, none whatsoever. I learned about it the same way everyone else did when the company's fraud investigators flagged it. I see, and you work in it. Security, correct? That's right. So you'd have the technical knowledge to set up the kind of digital trap that exposed the fraud. I would, but so would thousands of other people in this city. Its security is a pretty common field these days. True. Well, I think that's all I need for now. Thank you for your time. Detective, can I ask how the investigation is going? I can't discuss details, but I will say that we have a very strong case. Your ex-wife and Mr. Cross made a lot of mistakes. I'm sure they did. After I hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat down to plan the final phase of my revenge. Ilaria and Leo were both facing criminal charges, unemployment and social isolation, but that wasn't enough. I wanted them to understand completely and utterly that their actions had consequences. I wanted them to know that I was the one who had orchestra ** trotted their downfall, and I wanted everyone else to know it too. It was time for the final confrontation. The bail hearing was set for 10 a.m. on a Friday morning. I arrived at the courthouse early and took a seat in the back of the courtroom wearing my best suit and a satisfied smile. Ilaria was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit that clashed horribly with her complexion. Her hair was greasy, her makeup was gone, and she looked like she'd aged 5 years in the past week. When she saw me in the courtroom, her eyes widened with surprise and then narrowed with rage. The hearing was brief. Ilaria's court-appointed attorney argued for reasonable bail, citing her ties to the community and lack of prior criminal history. The prosecutor countered by pointing out that she was facing serious fraud charges and had already violated one court order. The judge set bail at $50,000. Does the defendant have someone who can post bail? The judge asked. Ilaria's attorney looked around the courtroom, hopefully, other than me. There were only a few other people present: court staff, other defendants waiting for their hearings, and a reporter from the local business journal who'd been covering the fraud case. Your Honor, the attorney said, I'll need to discuss this with my client very well. Next, case. As Ilaria was led back to the holding area, she turned and stared at me. One more time I gave her a small wave. Outside the courthouse I was approached by the reporter, Mr. Baskin. I'm Jennifer Walsh from the Business Journal. Could I ask you a few questions about your wife's case? Ex-wife, and sure, how do you feel about the charges against her? I think justice is being served. My ex-wife made some very poor choices and now she's facing the consequences. Some people are suggesting that you might have had a role in exposing the fraud. Any comment on that? I'm an IT security professional. It's my job to spot and prevent fraud. If my expertise helped bring this case to light, then I'm glad I could help. So, you're admitting you were involved. I'm saying that I provided information to the appropriate authorities when I became aware of potential criminal activity. That's what any responsible citizen would do. The article ran the next Monday with the headline, "Scorned Husband Helps Expose Wife's Fraud Scheme." It included quotes from me, details about Ilaria's arrest, and speculation about Leo's role in the conspiracy. By Tuesday, it had been picked up by 3 other local news outlets. Wednesday morning I got a call from Tori. Have you seen the news coverage? She asked, hard to miss it. Ilaria is furious. She's been calling me from jail, ranting about how you've destroyed her reputation and ruined her life. Her reputation was destroyed the moment she decided to cheat on her husband and steal from her company. I just made sure people knew about it. She's talking about pleading not guilty and fighting the charges, says she's going to claim you framed her. Good luck with that. The evidence against her is overwhelming and most of it came from her own actions. What about Leo? What about him? He's been trying to reach out to people claiming he was manipulated by Ilaria and that he's the real victim here. How's that working out for him? Not well. Nobody wants to associate with either of them right now. That afternoon, I was leaving Baskin Tech when I spotted a familiar figure sitting on a bench across the street. Leo looked terrible, unshaven, wearing clothes that looked like he'd slept in them, staring at the building with the hollow eyes of a man who'd lost everything. I walked over to him, waiting for someone. I asked. He looked up at me with a mixture of hatred and despair. You did this. You destroyed both of us. I didn't do anything except protect myself and my business from 3 people who tried to cheat and steal their way to success. You manipulated everything. The fraud investigation, the media coverage, all of it, prove it. He stood up swaying slightly. I could smell alcohol on his breath. I don't have to prove it, I know it and you know it. What I know is that you and Ilaria made a series of terrible decisions and are now facing the consequences. What you know is that you're unemployed, unemployable, and probably going to prison. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You're finished. Leo, both of you are, and the beautiful thing is, you did it to yourselves. He took a step toward me, his fists clenched. You think you're so smart. I don't think I'm smart. I know I'm smart enough to outmaneuver 3 people who thought they could cheat their way through life without consequences. I should have handled you differently from the beginning. You should have kept your hands off my wife, but you didn't. And now here we are. He stood there for a long moment, opening and closing his mouth like he wanted to say something else. Finally, he turned and walked away, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I watched him go, then pulled out my phone and called Mira. It's over. I said when she answered the court case. Everything. Ilaria in jail. Leo is broken and everyone knows exactly what they did. Justice has been served and how do you feel about that? Satisfied. Complete, ready to move on with my life. Good. You deserve some peace after everything they put you through. Thanks, Mira, for everything. Take care of yourself. Jack. That evening I sat in my condo with a glass of wine and looked out at Elliott Bay. The sun was setting, painting the water, gold and orange, and for the first time in months I felt truly relaxed. My phone buzzed with a text from Tori. Ilaria took a plea deal, 3 years in prison, full restitution to the company. Leo is expected to take a similar deal. Next week. I smiled and typed back. Justice served. Then I turned off my phone, finished my wine and started planning the rest of my life. A life without Ilaria, without drama, without people who thought they could use and betray me, without consequences. I'd gotten my revenge and it was everything I'd hoped it would be: complete, thorough and absolutely devastating. Ilaria had said she regretted marrying me, that she could have done better. Now she could regret underestimating me too. The game was over and I had won. My story ends here. If you feel that this story is meaningful and brings useful lessons, please like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thanks for listening and see you in the next videos.